Hi everyone, it's Georgie, and today I'm really excited because I have the opportunity to interview Logan Lynn. Logan Lynn is an American musician, writer, producer, filmmaker, television personality, mental health advocate, and LGBTQ plus activist. He also works with Portugal the Man, serving as the PTM Foundation director, where he helps build community resilience, empathy, and awareness through music, stories, art, education, and connectivity. Logan, I'm so excited to be speaking with you today.
Hi, likewise. That's all true. Everything you just said is true.
Perfect. So I just want to start off by talking about our feelings a little bit because it's an unprecedented time. It's very difficult. So my first question for you is, how are you doing?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's I'm trying to figure that out every day, just like everybody else. I actually think I'm doing pretty well. I am a person who is in long-term recovery from drugs and alcohol, so I have spent many years locked in my home already, sort of building this muscle. So I'm good as far as my day to day, like running, being in music. Not a great time for music as far as professional stuff goes, but I've been able to keep moving forward with all my work, and so logistically speaking, I would say I'm doing well.
That's great.
I have this underlying, like everyone has, anyone who's paying attention at least, has sort of an underlying existential dread. And I think that is largely about, am I going to see my family again? Am I going to be in here all by myself with only the dog forever? Like, is this the reality? So I have moments where I like dream into that a little, which is maybe not the best activity to pass time. And then I think, like everybody else, I have a thing of like, am I gonna die? Am I gonna get sick from getting the mail? Am I like I'm doing that performative cleaning that everyone's doing, where we're wiping everything down, and that's like not even how you get it. So I think I'm vacillating between everything's great, and I get some time at home with like, oh my god. And I've been in here, it was 5 months this past Saturday that I've actually been inside my house. I have a upstairs garden on the roof. Like, the dog and I go outside, but as far as like going down off the hill outside of the yard, like, that hasn't happened since March 7th.
Wow, I can relate to a lot of that. I am proud of you for being so careful, but I also feel you on that. It's definitely hard for you right now and hard for a lot of us. So that being said, do
Yeah.
you have any like tips for self-care during these challenging times?
I mean, I feel like self-care has been a big part of my life for years and years, just already. And so I have developed a lot of stuff that is working for me or has worked for me, but is no longer totally on the table, right? Like, so a lot of my stuff was external, or like I would go to Nordstrom and try on clothes and buy fancy soap, like all this stuff that kind of used to be my external buffer from my own feelings, has been taken away in a lot of ways, or paused at the very least. So I've been just like, like a lot of people, trying to figure that out. I think every morning, getting up at a certain time of day, and continuing to be a person in the world that like puts on pants and has an outfit, like stuff like that, to me has really mattered. Like, I've been like, okay, it's quarantine, but like, let's make it fashion or whatever. So like, I'm just like treating every day like a runway, which has been, entertaining. I don't know if that's self-care, but it certainly has kept me feeling like I'm a human being who's like alive in the world.
Mhm.
And I think there's also, the dogs are really winning this round. All of our pets are stoked. And so I've been trying to lean into that a little bit too, right? Like, I'm here with the dog, She loves me. She's the only one here. I love her. We may as well just like really hang out and get to know each other. So I've been doing that, like really serious hours long conversations with the dog, just around getting to know the animal kingdom a little more intimately. And then, probably a less healthy thing that I've been doing, but that definitely works, is just, recklessly spending money. Um, I've been in the house, like my internet works, and so my shopping fingers also work. And I'm in a place right now where I've been able to do that a little bit. So there's also been that where like now, like the most exciting thing that happens to me every week is FedEx.
That's amazing. I can definitely relate to you on the like dressing up for very mundane tasks. That is like the most excitement I get out of my day. And if I'm gonna
Right.
put on a big outfit to go to the grocery store, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, or just like very high fashion Zoom looks is sort of where I've
Like
been
right
living.
now, you're definitely
You
serving.
know, I'm telling you, it's a theme. Like I have been really trying to make my mark on the pandemic. When people think about me when this is over, I hope they think he really had some good looks.
Definitely, definitely. Okay, so just to switch gears a teeny tiny
Yeah,
bit, I just want to talk about Awareness Month for a second because that's a
sure.
super big thing for Flawless. And we just passed July, which is a huge awareness month in terms of it being Disability Pride Month, but also Minority Mental Health Month. And that being said, there's been a little bit of a transition from calling it Minority Mental Health Month into BIPOC Mental Health Month. And for those of you watching who aren't aware, that stands for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. So some people feel that the name change doesn't really include other underrepresented groups like LGBTQ plus or people with disabilities. And on the other hand, there are other people who want to shift away from using the word minority. So what do you feel about the name change and just what do you feel about the month and its importance in general?
Yeah, there's a lot there. I agree with folks that don't want to be called minorities in a way, and just from like the reality is that when you put us all together, we're no longer the minority, right? And so I think there's a call in my life and in all my work to try to get movements to work together to bring people in who maybe are working in silos, who are focused on maybe their own communities, and which is super important. But how do we expand that where like I'm working on my own community stuff, I'm an advocate for mental health while I'm an advocate for LGBTQ issues, and I believe that Black Lives Matter, and I run a foundation that's focused on Indigenous rights, right? So I feel like there is no shortage of focal points and important causes. And really, if you zoom out a little bit, it's all one movement, right? Like we're talking about human rights, we're talking about people being happy, healthy, celebrated, and loved, and building that into our systems. And so I think there's an opportunity for us to be really useful to each other during this time. It was interesting Pride Month in that the pandemic had canceled Pride festivals already, and then the social uprising in the streets sort of shifted to police injustice, right, during the time where normally people would be really focused on just LGBTQ stuff. And I think it provided an opportunity for me as a gay person and for our communities to circle back around to the origins of Pride and how Pride actually started as a riot, and how important it is that if we're going to fight, we should all be fighting together, and that there's a lot of stuff that is interconnected around intersectionality, around different identities. We aren't all just one thing, and so I think being able to come to a place where we embrace that and harness the power in that diversity, not just like from a diversity talking point either, but like actually like my lived experience in the world is beneficial to other movements, just like other people's lived experience in the world is beneficial to the movements that I'm deeply in sort of rooted in. And I think there's a call now for us to work together. And ultimately it's all the same people who hate us, right? So like if we're talking about the people that are up here at the top behind the curtain, controlling the money, controlling the power, um, there's a lot of commonality around the folks that are trying to keep us down, around the oppressor. Like there's not like a whole bunch of diversity in the villain category. It's a few people doing the same stuff to a bunch of different groups, and part of the gag is that we're all fighting for such limited resources. We're all starved for the attention, for our suffering, that we end up not working together. And that's actually the design of it all, right? Like that's racism, that's poverty. It's keeping us all at odds with each other, so we never collectively look up to the powers that be and demand change. And I think part of that change demanding is starting to happen, right? Like that's what we started are seeing currently. I live in Portland, Oregon, and I can see the city on fire every night from my house, and all of my friends are down there. Everybody, the whole town has gotten together. Something like 65 nights now or something. And so change, I think, is happening. People are coming together. I think people are realizing that your movement is my movement, and I have no business fighting for myself if I'm not also fighting for you.
Absolutely. I love that answer so much. I think intersectionality is so important. I think recognizing that we all need to be there for each other right now. If we're not like, like if we're the underdogs, like being there for each other right now is so important. And that kind of leads into my next question, where I want to talk about how, speaking of like BIPOC mental health, there's definitely been, like you said, a larger focus on social justice issues regarding members of the BIPOC communities, especially members of the Black community. So, as a member of the LGBTQ plus community, and you might have answered this a little bit already, but what can different marginalized groups do to show up for one another?
Well, I think you just named it, right? Like showing up. So, and I think there's a big piece of listening that has to happen, listening and learning, being open to the fact that me as a white man, even though I'm gay, even though I experienced homelessness as a LGBTQ youth, even though blah blah blah, all of these struggles, like one of my struggles is not that people discriminate against me because of the color of my skin, right? And so being able to really sit with your own trauma, sit with your own pain, sit with your own suffering, and make space for the fact that you can't always relate directly to the suffering of others, and you actually need to be in relationship with people to learn more from them so that you can be of use to that movement, or even just to those people and their lived experience, right? Like if you're friends with people, the assumption that you all have the same experience in the world can really keep you from being close. And so I think, showing up for people, just being willing to be wrong, being willing to learn, and being willing to set your own stuff down for a second and pick up somebody else's, even while your own stuff is still happening, feels really key.
Definitely. I think that's so well said. So thank you for that answer.
Sure.
Next, I want to talk about how, the fact that many cultures have different conceptualizations of mental health specifically, for example, their causes, their symptoms, their labels. How do you suggest we reconcile these differences in a way that individuals can get the care and the support that they need?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think a lot of the, I often have said that with the mental and behavioral health care system or industry or whatever you want to call it, um, it's sort of like that old horror movie adage where the call's coming from inside the house, right? Where it's like part of the problem of the mental health industry is the mental health industry itself, right? Like people are segmented out at first, right? Like you're diagnosed, you're segmented out. What are you? We give you a new identity. Oh, you're schizophrenic, right? Like that's what you are, whatever it ends up being, versus like taking a more human approach where people are experiencing something. Maybe you're experiencing schizophrenia or whatever it ends up being, but you aren't that. It's not replacing your identity. And I think there's a lot of that on the ground level of the mental health world, people get have their humanity taken out and replaced with this diagnosis. And um, I think that's a problem. I think that keeps people from um, feeling safe. It keeps people from growing. It keeps people from healing, right? Like I feel like I've had different diagnoses over the years and certainly different struggles that are no longer part of my life. And so if I had replaced my identity and my personhood with my depression or whatever I was experiencing, that would have been really problematic. And I think that's the deal that often people are asked to make is like, if you come out with this, if you ask for help, like there's going to be some loss of yourself, right? Like medication or some truth that you have kept as just your own will now not no longer belong to you. Like all of that feels false to me, and I've done a lot of rejecting of those narratives, but I don't think that's the culture. I think it's the mental health industry first and foremost, and the culture kind of follows. But thinking about LGBTQ mental health specifically and culturally competent mental health needs across the board, like there's so much work to do. I've certainly had to navigate my own growth, my own recovery in ways that I don't necessarily think my straight counterparts always have to. But it's no picnic for anybody. If you're having a mental health crisis, no matter your age, no matter your identity in this country, especially, it's going to be a struggle.
Definitely, definitely. I don't think I could have said that better myself, and I think that's like so important to acknowledge across the board. Um, okay, and going into kind of concluding a little bit here, last but not least, we always end by asking people what gives them hope. So specifically, I want to ask you, what would a flawless world look like to you?
Yeah. I'm so into like embracing my flaws that like to me flawlessness has a lot to do with just like accepting that that doesn't even really exist, right? Like and I know that's a big piece of y'all's work is like pointing out the beauty in people's actual experience and actual existence. Hope. I feel like I have gone through so much in my life that has felt like it had no end in sight, and here we are. There was obviously an end in that suffering, and life is good now on the other side. So I have a I have this truth that I carry around where I know for a fact that my life has resolved several times over, and then it will dip and it will resolve again, right? Like just like any relationship, any business, you dip and you come back out. So that's what I know to be true. My life has had so many great moments and so many like oh my god terrible moments, right? Like that where I'm just like publicly humiliated and everything sucks and I'm like I can never show my face again, and then like actually yes I can. So with that experience I think I'm applying a little bit of that to the pandemic, to this time we're in, trying to think of it more of like a portal to a better world than like the end of a world that I liked. Because I don't know that I liked the old world all that much. Like if I'm being honest, like I grieve some of the convenience. I've been grieving like some of like what I mentioned earlier, like this like stupid stuff that makes me feel better but doesn't actually matter. Certainly would be better to be able to be around each other and not kill each other. But like the old world wasn't really all that great either, right? It's not like everybody had everything that they needed. So I'm okay if this ends up being a catalyst for some sort of positive change for people that maybe didn't have a place at the table before. Great. Now I think that could be a little Pollyannish of me, thinking that this is a portal leading to a better world. But hope matters. And so, my narrative is it's going to be what we make it. It's an opportunity for us to create what we want in healthcare. It's an opportunity for us to create what we want around self care, around how we are with each other. And not everybody's going to do that, but those of us who are, I think, have the opportunity to come out of this in a better place with each other.
Perfect. Thank you so much for saying that because I feel like that's the type of thing that's really important for people to hear right now. Even though what we're used to isn't really there right now. You know, there's still hope and there's still so much opportunity for growth because of what's happening. So I appreciate that answer.
Yeah.
And I just want to say thank you, Logan, both for your important work and for taking the time to speak with me today.
Always. Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. And to anybody watching, you can find Logan Lynn on Instagram at Logan Lynn Official, on Twitter at Logan Lynn, and you can find his music on streaming platforms. Thanks for watching.